She stood in the marbled lobby of the Santini Tower, rain dripping from her coat, clutching a secret that could destroy them both or bind them forever. Across the vast space, Don Raphael Santini emerged from the executive elevator, his dark suit impeccable, his presence commanding every eye in the room. But his gaze found only her. For 3 heartbeats, the world held its breath. Then he moved toward her like a man who'd finally found what he'd been searching for his entire life, and Ariana Greco realized with terrifying clarity that some men don't let go. They simply wait. Asterisk, thank you for joining this story. Please like, share, and subscribe. Asterisk. The pregnancy test felt like fire in Ariana's purse as she watched Raphael approach. 6 months since their divorce. 6 months since she'd walked away from the most dangerous man in Chicago, believing distance would cure what they'd broken. She'd been wrong about so many things. Ariana. His voice was velvet over steel, the Italian accent threading through her name like a claim. You came. She hadn't planned to. The call from his assistant had been professional, urgent, claiming documents needed her signature. But standing here now, watching how his dark eyes consumed every detail of her face, she knew there were no documents. What do you want, Raphael? A smile ghosted across his lips. Not the cold smile he gave his enemies, but something softer. Something that remembered how she tasted at 3 in the morning when the world was nothing but tangled sheets and whispered confessions. 5 minutes of your time. Upstairs. Please. The please undid her. Raphael Santini didn't beg. He commanded, decided, controlled. But for her, he asked. She followed him into the elevator, maintaining careful distance. The doors closed, sealing them in glass and chrome and the weight of everything unsaid. He pressed the button for the penthouse where they'd once lived together, where she'd left him with nothing but a note and her wedding ring on the kitchen counter. I'm seeing someone, she said, because silence with Raphael was dangerous. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Is he good to you? The question was a trap. If she said yes, Raphael would dissect every interaction to prove otherwise. If she said no, he'd eliminate the man from existence. He's kind. Normal. Safe. Safe. Raphael repeated the word like it was foreign. You don't want safe, Kara. You never did. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. Nothing had changed. The same artwork, the same furniture, the same view of Chicago sprawling beneath them like a kingdom. Only she was different. She had to be. Raphael moved to the bar, poured 2 glasses of wine without asking if she wanted one. Old habit. He'd always known what she needed before she did, reading her moods like scripture. I need you to sign something, he said, sliding a folder across the marble counter. But first, I need you to know why. She didn't open the folder. Raphael. Someone is targeting my associates. 3 attempts in 2 weeks. Professional, coordinated, meant to draw me into a war I didn't start. He took a slow sip of wine, his composure absolute despite the implications. Your name appeared in the intelligence last night. Ice flooded her veins. What? They know we were married. They know you still matter. His eyes held hers with devastating focus. The divorce won't protect you if they believe you're my weakness. I'm not your weakness. We're done, Raphael. We have been for months. He set down his glass with careful precision. Are we, Ariana? Because I think about you every morning when I wake alone. Every night when the bed is too empty. Every moment in between when I remember how you laughed, how you challenged me, how you made me believe I could be more than what my blood dictates. She couldn't breathe. This was why she'd left. Not because she didn't love him, but because she loved him too much. Because being the wife of a mafia boss meant living in constant fear, constant compromise, constant knowledge that the man she adored commanded empires built on violence. You promised you'd let me go. I lied. The words were simple, devastating. I've given you 6 months of freedom, Ariana. 6 months to realize that ordinary men with safe lives will never know you the way I do. Will never worship you the way you deserve. You don't know what I deserve. He moved around the counter, closing the distance until she could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. He didn't touch her, but she felt claimed anyway. I know you deserve a man who would burn the world to keep you safe. Who would walk away from everything he's built if you asked. Who loves you so completely that 6 months apart felt like dying. His voice dropped to a whisper. I know you deserve the truth. So here it is. I will never stop loving you. Never stop protecting you. Never stop wanting you back. Her hand instinctively moved to her purse, to the secret growing inside her. His child. Conceived during a moment of weakness 3 months ago when she'd agreed to meet him for closure and ended up in his bed instead, remembering why gravity couldn't compete with the pull between them. The papers, she managed. What am I signing? Protection. Legal documents that give you access to my security team, safe houses, resources. If something happens to me, you'll be taken care of. I don't want your money, Raphael. It's not about money. It's about knowing you're safe when I close my eyes at night. He finally touched her, one finger tracing her jawline with aching gentleness. Sign them, please. Even if you never forgive me for being who I am. Even if you spend the rest of your life with safe, normal men who will never satisfy you. She should leave. Should run before his gravity pulled her back into orbit. But the baby complicated everything. He deserved to know. And the threats he described made her blood run cold. I'll sign, she whispered. But then I'm leaving. And you have to promise to let me. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, perhaps. Or recognition that she was lying to them both. Of course, Kara. Whatever you need. She signed the documents with shaking hands while he watched from across the room, giving her space even as his presence filled every corner. When she finished, she stood to leave. Ariana. His voice stopped her at the elevator. The man you're seeing. Does he know you still wear the perfume I bought you? That you still drink your coffee the way I taught you? That when you're stressed, you touch the place where your wedding ring used to be. She'd been doing exactly that, fingers ghosting over bare skin. Goodbye, Raphael. The elevator doors closed on his face, on the yearning etched into every aristocratic feature. She made it to her car before the tears came, before the weight of loving him and leaving him crushed her chest until breathing hurt. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, the accountant she'd been dating for 3 weeks. Asterisk dinner tonight? There's something I want to ask you. Asterisk. She knew what he'd ask. Could see the trajectory of their safe, normal relationship leading to a safe, normal proposal. A life where she'd never fear midnight phone calls or blood on expensive suits. Where love was quiet and easy and utterly insufficient. She typed a response. Asterisk, I can't. I'm sorry. This isn't working. Asterisk. Then she blocked his number before guilt could make her reconsider. The next morning, Ariana woke to roses. 24 blood-red blooms on her doorstep with a card in Raphael's sharp handwriting. Asterisk, thank you for signing. Thank you for being alive. Thank you for existing. Asterisk. No demands. No manipulation. Just gratitude for her mere presence in the world. She tried to throw them away. Made it as far as the trash bin before her treacherous hands arranged them in a vase instead, their beauty mocking her resolve. Work was a blur. She'd built a small art gallery in the months since the divorce, pouring her heartbreak into something tangible. The space was modest but respected, her eye for emerging talent gaining recognition. It was hers, separate from Raphael's empire. Proof she could exist without him. Except she couldn't stop touching her stomach, imagining the life growing there. His child. Their child. A choice she'd have to make soon. Ms. Greco? Her assistant poked her head into the office. There's a gentleman here to see you. Says it's important. Ariana's heart jumped. But the man who entered wasn't Raphael. Older, distinguished, with cold eyes that catalogued everything. Mrs. Santini, he said, and the use of her former name was deliberate. Or do you prefer Greco now? I can never keep track of modern women and their independence. I prefer you leave. I don't know you. But I know you. Know you married Don Santini 3 years ago in a private ceremony in Tuscany. Know you left him 6 months ago, though the reasons remain unclear. Know you met with him yesterday for the first time since the divorce. He smiled without warmth. I know everything worth knowing. Fear licked up her spine. Who are you? Someone who believes your ex-husband has something that belongs to me. Territory in the ports. Contracts that should have been mine. Respect he hasn't earned. He stepped closer, and Ariana fought the urge to retreat. I also believe he'd be willing to negotiate if proper motivation was applied. I'm not his wife anymore. I can't help you. Can't you? Because my sources say Don Santini hasn't looked at another woman since you left. That he still wears his wedding ring. That yesterday's meeting lasted 43 minutes. Quite lengthy for signing documents, wouldn't you say? She forced her expression neutral. We have shared assets. The divorce was complex. Divorce. He repeated it like a joke. Men like Raphael Santini don't divorce, Mrs. Greco. They acquire. Possess. Protect. The paperwork you signed is meaningless when his heart is still chained to you. He produced a business card, set it on her desk like a threat. When you're ready to discuss terms, and you will call me. I'd hate for such a beautiful gallery to suffer an unfortunate accident. Fire codes are so complicated these days. He left, and Ariana immediately called Raphael. The phone rang once before his voice filled her ear, sharp with concern. What's wrong? How did he know? How did he always know? A man was here. Didn't give his name. He threatened the gallery. He knows about yesterday. Silence. Then, where are you? My office, but Raphael. Stay there. Don't leave, don't talk to anyone. I'm coming. You can't just, but he'd already hung up. He arrived in 12 minutes, impossible for the distance but somehow expected. 2 men in dark suits flanked him, professional violence barely contained. Raphael swept into her gallery like a storm, his eyes finding her immediately. Show me where he stood. Tell me everything he said. Every word, Ariana. She recounted the conversation while Raphael listened with terrifying stillness. His men disappeared into the gallery, checking security, cataloging vulnerabilities. When she finished, Raphael's jaw was granite. Viktor Kozlov. Russian. Ambitious. Stupid. He pulled out his phone, sent a text. He won't touch you. I'll make sure of it. How? By starting a war? By proving I'm exactly the leverage he thinks I am. Her voice rose. This is why I left, Raphael. This violence, this danger, this world where people threaten me because I was foolish enough to love you. His hand shot out, cupping her face with devastating tenderness. You weren't foolish. You were brave. Braver than anyone who's ever existed in my life. His thumb traced her cheekbone. And I'm sorry. Sorry that loving me comes with such a price. Sorry that my world touches you with poison. But I'm not sorry for loving you. I'll never be sorry for that. She was crying now, tears sliding over his fingers. I can't do this again. Can't live knowing every goodbye might be the last. Can't raise. She stopped, the secret almost spilling out. Can't raise what? His eyes sharpened, reading her the way he always did. Ariana. Can't raise what? Her hand moved to her stomach before she could stop it. Raphael's gaze followed, and she watched comprehension dawn across his face. Shock, wonder, fierce possessive joy. You're pregnant. Not a question. A revelation. I don't know. Maybe. I haven't confirmed. The lie tasted bitter. Don't. His voice was rough. Don't lie to me. Not about this. I can see it in your eyes, feel it in how carefully you're breathing. How far along? 3 months. From that night. When I made love to you in my office, and you cried my name like a prayer. He pulled her against him, one hand splaying across her stomach with reverent possession. My child. Our child. Christo, Ariana, you were going to keep this from me? I didn't know how to tell you. Didn't know if I should. If bringing a baby into your world was fair or insane or... He kissed her. Not gentle, not asking permission, but claiming her mouth with 3 months of separation and a lifetime of need. She melted into him because fighting gravity was exhausting, because his taste was home, because carrying his child made the truth undeniable. She'd never stopped being his. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. Marry me again. Tonight. Tomorrow. Let me protect you both the way I should have from the beginning. His voice cracked. Let me be a father. A husband. Everything I failed at before, but will spend my life perfecting. Raphael. I'll leave it all. The family, the business, the empire. Will disappear to Tuscany or Greece or anywhere you feel safe. I'll be whoever you need me to be. She believed him. That was the terrifying part. Raphael Santini, who commanded criminal networks across 3 continents, would walk away from it all for her. For their baby. But she also knew what it would cost him. Knew the blood that would spill in the power vacuum. Knew that men like Viktor Kozlov would see his absence as weakness and hunt them anyway. I need time. To think. To process all of this. Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. I'll give you time. But I'm also giving you protection. 24-hour security. No arguments, Ariana. You're carrying my child. My heir. Every enemy I've ever made will want that leverage. She started to protest, but he was right. The baby changed everything. Okay, but invisible. I don't want armed guards following me to prenatal appointments. Invisible as ghosts. You'll never know they're there. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips with aching softness. Take your time. Think. But know this. I've never wanted anything in my life the way I want this. You, me, our baby. A family. He left, taking his men but leaving his heart evident in every backward glance. Ariana sat in the silence of her gallery, hand on her stomach, mind racing. She'd thought leaving Raphael would free her. Instead, she'd carried him with her every moment, in her dreams, her habits, the space where her wedding ring used to live. And now their child grew inside her, a truth that couldn't be divorced. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk, the Don thinks he can protect you. He's wrong. We'll be in touch. Asterisk. Her hands shook as she forwarded it to Raphael. His response was immediate. Asterisk coming back. Don't move, asterisk. But she couldn't stay still. Couldn't be the helpless woman waiting for men to decide her fate. She'd built this gallery alone, survived the divorce, carved out an identity separate from being Raphael Santini's wife. The baby deserved a mother who was strong, not afraid. She grabbed her purse and headed for the back exit. Raphael's invisible security could follow or not. She needed air, space, distance from the fear closing around her throat. The alley behind the gallery was narrow, shadowed despite the afternoon sun. She made it 3 steps before strong hands grabbed her, yanking her backward. A cloth covered her mouth, chemical sweet and suffocating. She fought, clawing and kicking, but her attacker was professional. Trained. The world blurred at the edges as her body went limp, the last conscious thought a prayer that someone was watching, that Raphael's promise of protection was real. Then darkness swallowed everything. Raphael knew something was wrong before his phone rang. A sixth sense developed through decades of surviving by reading the currents of danger. When his head of security's name flashed on the screen, he answered, already moving toward the door. She's gone. 2 words. A death sentence. Explain. His voice was ice over molten fury. Back exit. Security footage shows 2 men, professional extraction. Vehicle unregistered. We lost them 6 blocks away. A pause. Sir, there was blood. Not much, but... Raphael didn't hear the rest. Didn't need to. Ariana was gone, taken by men who knew exactly what she meant to him. And she was carrying his child. The carefully constructed control he'd maintained for 6 months shattered. He made 3 calls. The first mobilized every resource at his disposal, soldiers, informants, tech specialists. The second reached out to allies in law enforcement who owed him favors. The third went to Viktor Kozlov. Did you think I wouldn't know? Raphael's voice was death. That I wouldn't trace this back to you within minutes? Ah, Don Santini. I wondered how long it would take. Kozlov sounded pleased. Your wife is comfortable. For now. Whether she stays that way depends entirely on you. She's pregnant. The words tore from somewhere primal. If you've hurt her. Pregnant. Genuine surprise colored Kozlov's tone. How delightful. That changes the negotiation considerably. An heir to the Santini Empire? Worth far more than territory. Name your price. Everything. The ports, the contracts, your networks in the Eastern Territories. Sign it all over, step down as Dawn, and I'll return your lovely wife and your unborn child. Kozlov paused. You have 24 hours to decide what matters more, your empire or your family. Choose wisely. The line went dead. Raphael stared at the phone, decades of strategy warring with an emotion he'd never allowed to dictate his decisions. Terror. Not for himself, but for Ariana. For their baby. For the future he'd just glimpsed and would now kill to protect. His consigliera entered the office, reading his expression with practiced ease. What are your orders, Don Santini? Raphael looked out over Chicago, the city he'd claimed block by bloody block. His father had built this empire. His grandfather before him. Generations of Santini blood soaked into these streets, this power, this legacy. And he'd burn it all without hesitation if it brought Ariana home. Tell Kozlov I accept. Prepare the transfer documents. His voice was granite. And mobilize everyone. Because while I'll give him what he wants, I never promised he'd live to enjoy it. His consigliera smiled, cold and approving. The girl has made you dangerous, Don Santini. Your father would be proud. My father never loved anything more than power. I'm not my father. Raphael returned to the penthouse, to the room still haunted by Ariana's presence. Her perfume lingered in the closet, where she'd left clothes behind. Her books still marked the shelves. Small pieces of her that he'd refused to remove, as if doing so would make the divorce real. Now he was grateful for every trace. Every reminder of what he was fighting for. His phone buzzed with an incoming message. A photo. Ariana, pale but alive, sitting in what looked like a warehouse. Her hand protectively covered her stomach, and even through the fear in her eyes, he saw defiance. The message beneath read, asterisk, she's a fighter. Almost killed my man with her car keys. Made sure to sedate her before she damaged your heir, asterisk. Rage unlike anything Raphael had ever known burned through his veins. They'd drugged her, put hands on her, terrified her while she carried his child. He would make them pray for death before he granted it. But first, he had to get her back. Had to see with his own eyes that she was unharmed. Had to hold her and promise that this would never happen again because he'd eliminate every threat, destroy every enemy, rewrite the entire criminal landscape to keep her safe. His phone rang again. Ariana's number. He answered on the first ring. Raphael. Her voice was hoarse, scared, but alive. Don't give them anything. Don't you dare sacrifice. Quiet, Mrs. Santini. Kozlov's voice replaced hers. Your ex-husband and I are negotiating. Don't worry. I'm sure he values you appropriately. Let me talk to her. Why? So she can beg you to stay away? So she can pretend she doesn't need you to save her. Kozlov laughed. Women lie, Don Santini. But their fear tells the truth. And your Ariana is very afraid. The line went dead again. Raphael looked at the clock. 22 hours until Kozlov's deadline. 22 hours to find her, extract her, and destroy everyone involved. He'd need fewer than 12. Ariana woke in darkness, head pounding from whatever they'd drugged her with. The room was cold, concrete, windowless. Industrial. Her hands were zip-tied, but her feet were free. Small mercies. She forced herself to breathe slowly, to think past the panic. The baby. She had to protect the baby. Her captors had been careful not to hurt her once they realized she was pregnant. That was leverage in itself. They needed her healthy, needed the baby safe to maintain control over Raphael. The door opened, spilling fluorescent light. A man entered, not Kozlov, but someone younger, harder. He set down a bottle of water and a sandwich. Eat. The boss wants you and the kid healthy. How considerate. Her voice was acid. Tell your boss he's made a mistake. Raphael will destroy him for this. The man smiled without humor. The great Don Santini will give us everything we want. Your insurance. The baby is insurance. By this time tomorrow, Kozlov will run Chicago, and you'll be free to return to your divorced life. You don't know Raphael. He doesn't negotiate with terrorists. Terrorists? We're businessmen, Mrs. Santini. And your ex-husband is a businessman too. He understands cost-benefit analysis. His empire isn't worth one woman and an unborn child. He headed for the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. Alone again, Ariana examined the room for weaknesses. The zip ties were tight but cheap. The door was solid, but she'd noticed the guard didn't lock it from outside. He'd secured a padlock after closing it, meaning the mechanism was external. If she could get her hands free, if she could time it right. She twisted her wrists, ignoring the burn. Raphael had taught her this once, during a night when she'd asked about his scars, and he'd shown her how to escape basic restraints. She'd laughed then, thinking it was romantic in a twisted way. Now it might save her life. 30 minutes later, her wrists were bloody but free. She drank the water, ate the sandwich for the baby's sake, and waited. Her captors would check on her eventually. And when they did, she'd be ready. Hours passed. The lock clicked. Ariana positioned herself against the wall beside the door, the plastic bottle in her hand. Not much of a weapon, but desperation bred creativity. The guard entered, eyes scanning the empty corner where she'd been sitting. She had 1 second of advantage. She swung the bottle hard against his temple. He stumbled, more surprised than hurt, but it was enough. Ariana ran, bursting into a hallway lined with other doors. The warehouse was massive, shadowed, and she had no idea which direction led to freedom. Footsteps thundered behind her. Shouts. She ran faster, pregnant body protesting but adrenaline overriding everything. A hand grabbed her arm. She spun, clawing at her attacker's face. He cursed, shoving her against the wall. Another guard appeared, and suddenly she was restrained again, this time with metal cuffs that cut into her wrists. Feisty. The first guard wiped blood from his cheek. Kozlov's going to love this. Maybe we should have gagged her too. Touch me again and Raphael will feed you to the pigs, Ariana snarled. Slowly, while you're still conscious. They dragged her back to the room, securing her to a chair this time. The guard she'd hit knelt in front of her, expression cold. You're brave. Stupid but brave. Here's the reality, sweetheart. Don Santini is going to sign over his empire to save you. And then you're going to watch us execute him anyway, because Kozlov doesn't share power. You'll raise his kid alone, knowing you're the reason Chicago's greatest Don died begging. You're wrong. Her voice shook but held firm. Raphael doesn't beg. And he doesn't lose. The guard laughed, standing. Then I guess we'll see, won't we? The door slammed shut, leaving her alone with fear and fury, and the terrible knowledge that Raphael was walking into a trap, and she couldn't warn him. She could only pray that the man she loved was as dangerous as everyone feared, and that his love for her was stronger than any empire. Raphael stood in the center of his war room, surrounded by maps, surveillance feeds, and men who'd kill on his command. 12 hours since Ariana's abduction. 12 hours of methodical, ruthless searching. We've identified the warehouse, his tech specialist said, pulling up satellite imagery. Industrial district near the docks. Kozlov owns it through shell companies. Heavy security, at least 8 men inside. And Ariana? Thermal imaging shows a single occupant in the eastern corner, ground floor. Seated, possibly restrained. The specialist hesitated. Sir, there's movement suggesting increased agitation in the last hour. Some kind of disturbance. Raphael's jaw clenched. She'd tried to escape. Of course she had. Ariana never waited for rescue. She fought for herself. It was one of the 1,000 reasons he loved her. How long to mobilize a tactical team? 30 minutes. But sir, Kozlov's deadline is in 10 hours. If we move early, he'll know we found her. We'll possibly kill her out of spite. Raphael's mind calculated probabilities, outcomes, risks. We wait. Prepare the extraction, but we wait until I've signed the documents and confirmed she's alive. His consigliere stepped forward. Don Santini, giving Kozlov legal control of your territories is suicide. Even if we extract Ariana, he'll have the infrastructure to destroy you. Then we'll destroy him first. The documents I'm signing are worthless. Forgeries prepared by our legal team. They'll hold up to initial inspection but fall apart under scrutiny. Raphael's smile was predatory. Kozlov gets to feel victorious for approximately 6 hours before he realizes he owns nothing. And in those 6 hours, we'll dismantle his entire organization. Approval rippled through the room. This was the Don they knew, ruthless, strategic, always 3 moves ahead. But Raphael's hand trembled slightly as he poured whiskey, a tell only those who'd known him decades would recognize. Fear. Not for himself, but for the woman who carried his child and his heart. His phone rang. Kozlov. I trust you've had time to consider my offer, Don Santini. I've prepared the documents. Everything you asked for, the ports, the eastern territories, the contracts. All of it. Silence, then. You're agreeing? Just like that. My wife is pregnant with my child. No empire is worth their lives. Raphael's voice was steady despite the rage beneath. But I have conditions. I see her first, confirm she's unharmed. I verify the baby is safe. Then we make the exchange. How do I know you won't simply take her and refuse to sign? Because you'll have 50 armed men surrounding us. Because I'm coming alone. And because if I wanted to fight, you'd already be dead. Raphael let the threat settle. You wanted my empire, Kozlov. I'm giving it to you. Don't be greedy. Another pause. Tomorrow. Noon. The warehouse where your wife is currently held. Come alone, unarmed, with the documents. I'll have her waiting. If she has a single bruise I didn't put there myself, the deal is off. Kozlov laughed. Possessive even in surrender. No wonder she left you, Santini. What woman wants to be owned? The line disconnected before Raphael could respond. 11 hours. He had 11 hours to perfect the plan, coordinate his forces, and prepare to either save Ariana or die trying. He chose to believe the former. Failure wasn't an option when she was involved. Raphael returned to the penthouse one last time, moving through rooms saturated with memories. The kitchen where she'd learned to make his grandmother's pasta, swearing in English when the dough wouldn't cooperate. The living room where they'd danced at 3 a.m, drunk on wine and each other. The bedroom where he'd worshipped her body and promised forever. He'd meant those promises. Still meant them. In his study, he opened the safe and removed a velvet box. Inside, a necklace, delicate gold chain with a single diamond pendant. He'd bought it for their 2nd anniversary, the one they'd never celebrated because she'd left 2 weeks prior. Tomorrow, if everything went according to plan, he'd fasten it around her neck and ask her properly to be his wife again. To build the family they'd created accidentally but would choose deliberately. And if things didn't go according to plan, well, at least she'd know he'd died trying to save her. Some men left fortunes as legacies. Raphael would leave love. His consigliera found him there, staring at the necklace. The men are ready, positioned around the warehouse, waiting for your signal. Good. And the forgeries? Perfect. Kozlov's lawyers won't detect the flaws until it's too late. The older man studied Raphael with something approaching paternal concern. You're really willing to give it all up for her, aren't you? If the plan fails, if Kozlov demands the real transfers. Without hesitation, Raphael closed the box. My father built an empire because he had nothing else. No love, no family he didn't view as assets. He died alone, surrounded by wealth and power but empty. He met his consigliera's eyes. I won't make his mistakes. Ariana and our child are worth more than 1,000 empires. Your father would call that weakness. My father was wrong about many things. Raphael stood, sliding the necklace box into his pocket. Love isn't weakness. It's the only thing worth being strong for. Morning came too slowly and too fast. Raphael dressed carefully. Expensive suit, no weapons, nothing that would give Kozlov cause for suspicion. The documents sat in a leather briefcase, perfect forgeries that would crumble under legal scrutiny, but appear legitimate initially. His phone buzzed. A message from the head of security. Asterisk, all teams in position. Snipers have clear sight lines. Extraction vehicle ready. Waiting for your go signal. Asterisk. Raphael responded. Asterisk, hold until I confirm Ariana and baby are safe. If anything happens to me, execute Kozlov and everyone in that warehouse. No survivors. Asterisk. The drive to the warehouse was surreal. Chicago passed outside his window, his city, built by his family's blood and brilliance. By noon, Kozlov would believe he owned it. By sunset, he'd be dead. The warehouse loomed ahead, exactly as the surveillance had shown. Raphael parked, grabbed the briefcase, and walked toward the entrance with the calm of a man who'd accepted any outcome as long as Ariana survived. Kozlov's men were everywhere, weapons visible, expressions cold. They searched him roughly, found nothing, and escorted him inside. The interior was vast, shadowed, smelling of oil and rust. Kozlov stood in the center, flanked by guards. And beside him, secured to a chair but visibly alive, was Ariana. Their eyes met across the distance. Hers widened with relief and terror. His softened despite the audience, drinking in the sight of her. Pale, exhausted but breathing. The baby was safe. She was safe. That was all that mattered. Don Santini. Kozlov smiled. Punctual. I appreciate that in a man surrendering his legacy. Raphael ignored him, moving toward Ariana. A guard stepped into his path, but Kozlov waved him aside. Let him see his wife. Let him say goodbye to the empire he's trading for her. Raphael knelt in front of Ariana, hands cupping her face with infinite gentleness. She was trembling, tears streaming silently. I'm sorry, she whispered. I tried to escape. I shouldn't have left the gallery. This is my fault. Sho. None of this is your fault, cara mia. He kissed her forehead, breathing her in. Are you hurt? The baby. We're fine. Raphael, don't do this. Don't give him anything. I'll find a way out, I would give him the world if it meant keeping you safe. His thumb traced her lips. You and our baby are my world. Everything else is just architecture. How touching. Kozlov's voice dripped sarcasm. The great Don Santini, reduced to romantic platitudes. Do you have the documents? Raphael stood, turning to face Kozlov with cold eyes. I have them. Release my wife first. You're not in a position to make demands. Actually, I am. Because those documents are worthless until I sign them in front of witnesses and your lawyers verify the transfers. If Ariana isn't freed immediately, I'll destroy them. You'll get nothing and we'll all die here. Raphael's voice was ice. Your choice, Kozlov. Take what I'm offering or lose everything to pride. Tension crackled. Kozlov's hand moved toward his weapon. Raphael didn't flinch. Finally, Kozlov nodded. Two guards moved to release Ariana from the chair. She stood unsteadily, and Raphael was there instantly, arm around her waist, supporting her weight. The documents, Santini. Raphael placed the briefcase on a nearby table, opening it to reveal perfectly forged legal papers. Kozlov's lawyer appeared, studying them with meticulous attention. Minutes passed like hours. Ariana leaned into Raphael, and he held her carefully, aware of every bruise, every sign of trauma. His fingers traced protective circles on her stomach, over their child. The documents appear legitimate, the lawyer finally said. All holdings, territories, and contracts accounted for. signature and witness lines prepared. Then let's make history. Kozlov produced an expensive pen. Signed, Don Santini. And watch your empire transfer to someone who deserves it. Raphael took the pen. Met Ariana's eyes one last time. Saw her shake her head fractionally, begging him not to do this. He signed anyway, because some things mattered more than power. The moment his signature marked the final page, Kozlov laughed, a sound of pure triumph. Finally, years of planning, and the great Santini Empire is mine. He gestured to his men. Kill them both. I don't need loose ends. Raphael had been expecting this, had planned for it. His hand moved to his pocket, pressing the small device hidden there, the signal for his forces to breach. Chaos erupted. Windows shattered as snipers took out Kozlov's exterior guards. Doors exploded inward as Raphael's men flooded the warehouse. Gunfire echoed, deafening and deadly. Raphael shoved Ariana behind him, shielding her body with his own as bullets flew. She screamed his name, hands clutching his jacket as he moved them toward cover behind a concrete pillar. Stay down, he commanded. Don't move until I say. Kozlov was shouting orders, his carefully orchestrated victory disintegrating into violence. Raphael's men were better trained, more motivated, and they had tactical advantage. Within 90 seconds, half of Kozlov's forces were down. Raphael drew a weapon from a fallen guard. He'd come unarmed, but that didn't mean he'd stay that way. His consigliere appeared beside him, pressing a second gun into his palm. The exit is clear. Get her out. Kozlov. Is mine. The older man smiled coldly. You've already won, Don Santini. The documents are worthless, his organization is shattered, and his men are dying. Let me finish this. Raphael wanted to argue, wanted to be the one to end Kozlov personally. But Ariana's hand gripped his arm, nails digging in, and he remembered what mattered. Not revenge. Not pride. Her. Their baby. Their future. He lifted Ariana into his arms, ignoring her protests, and carried her toward the exit. His men formed a protective corridor, eliminating threats with professional efficiency. The warehouse fell away behind them, smoke and gunfire fading as they reached the waiting vehicle. Raphael placed Ariana in the back seat with excruciating gentleness, then climbed in beside her. The driver accelerated before the door fully closed, speeding away from the carnage. Only then did Raphael allow himself to breathe. Ariana was shaking, tears streaming down her face. He pulled her against his chest, one hand cradling her head, the other protectively over her stomach. It's over. You're safe. I've got you. You could have died. You walked in there unarmed, willing to give up everything. And I'd do it again. He tilted her face up, forcing her to meet his eyes. Don't you understand, Ariana? You are everything. This baby is everything. The empire, the power, the legacy, it's meaningless without you. She kissed him desperately, tasting salt and fear and love. His arms tightened, careful of her condition but unable to let go. When they finally broke apart, she was crying harder. I'm sorry I left. Sorry I tried to convince myself I could live without you. Sorry I was going to raise our baby alone because I was too scared to trust that love could be stronger than danger. You have nothing to apologize for. I'm the one who brought this world into your life. His voice roughened. But I swear to you, Ariana, I will burn it all down if it means keeping you safe. I'll walk away from the family, the business, everything. We can disappear. Start over somewhere you'll never have to fear. I don't want you to give it up. She placed her hand over his heart. I want you to transform it. Make it something our child can be proud of. Something that protects instead of destroys. I don't know if that's possible. With you, anything is possible. She smiled through tears. You infiltrated a heavily armed warehouse, orchestrated a military precision rescue, and emerged without a scratch. You can definitely figure out ethical crime management. Despite everything, he laughed. Ethical crime management. Only you would phrase it that way. The car pulled up to a private medical facility. Raphael had called ahead, ensuring the best obstetrician would be waiting. He carried Ariana inside, refusing to let her walk despite her protests. The examination took 30 minutes. 30 minutes of Raphael pacing like a caged animal, terrifying medical staff with his intensity, until the doctor finally emerged. Ms. Greco and the baby are fine. Some dehydration, minor abrasions, but nothing that requires intervention. I'd recommend rest, proper nutrition, and minimal stress. The doctor's eyes flicked to Raphael. Though I suspect the last one might be challenging. She'll have everything she needs. I'll see to it personally. When he was allowed back into the examination room, Ariana was sitting on the bed, hand on her stomach, eyes distant. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. "That I almost lost you today. That our baby almost lost their father before they were born." She met his gaze. "That I'm tired of fighting this, Raphael. Tired of pretending I don't love you. Tired of being afraid of a future that might be dangerous when the present without you is definitely empty." He knelt beside the bed, taking her hand. "I won't pretend my world is safe. I won't lie and promise nothing will ever threaten us again." His grip tightened. "But I will promise that I'll spend every day making you glad you chose me. That I'll love you and our baby with everything I am. That you'll never doubt your place in my heart. I know my place in your heart, Raphael. I've always known." She pulled him closer. "I just had to figure out if I was brave enough to claim it. And now I'm terrified and certain and completely in love with you." She smiled. "So ask me again." "Ask you what?" "What you asked me yesterday in the penthouse." Raphael's heart stopped, then raced. He reached into his jacket, pulling out the velvet box he'd carried into the warehouse, into possible death, because even then he'd hoped. He opened it, revealing the diamond necklace. "This isn't a ring," he said, "because I still have your wedding ring. I've kept it since the day you left, carrying it everywhere, waiting for the moment I could put it back where it belongs." He lifted the necklace. "But this is new. For the new beginning I'm asking for. Ariana Greco, will you marry me again? Will you let me be your husband, our baby's father, and the man who loves you until my last breath?" She was crying again, nodding before he finished speaking. "Yes. Yes to all of it. Yes to you." He fastened the necklace around her throat with shaking hands, then kissed her with every ounce of love, relief, and promise he possessed. When they finally left the medical facility, dawn was breaking over Chicago. Raphael's city. Soon to be their city. The place where they'd build something new, not perfect, not safe, but theirs. His phone buzzed. A message from his consigliera. Kozlov is dead. His organization dismantled. The forgeries have been destroyed. Your empire remains intact. Congratulations, Don Santini. Raphael showed Ariana the message. She read it, then looked up at him with clear eyes. "What happens now?" "Now." He pulled her close, hand protectively over their baby. "Now I take you home. Feed you. Let you rest. And then we plan a wedding that will remind Chicago exactly who the Santinis are. And who are we? Survivors. Fighters. Lovers." He kissed her temple. "A family." She leaned into him, exhausted and safe and finally home. But as the car pulled away from the medical facility, neither of them saw the figure watching from across the street. Saw the camera capturing their intimate moment. Saw the phone call being made to someone who'd been waiting for exactly this vulnerability. Kozlov was dead, but his allies weren't. And they'd just learned that Don Raphael Santini had a pregnant ex-wife he'd risk everything to protect. The war, it seemed, was far from over. The wedding happened 3 days later in the private chapel on Raphael's estate, witnessed by only his most trusted men and the priest who'd baptized 3 generations of Santinis. Ariana wore ivory silk that accommodated her growing belly, and Raphael couldn't take his eyes off her. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife for the second time, Raphael kissed her like a man who'd been granted resurrection. Because that's what this was, a second chance at the life they'd almost destroyed through fear and pride. "I love you, Mrs. Santini," he whispered against her lips. "I love you, Don Santini," she whispered back, and the title no longer felt like a cage but a crown they'd wear together. The reception was intimate, elegant, nothing like the extravagant affair their first wedding had been. Raphael had learned that Ariana didn't need spectacle. She needed sincerity, and he'd give her that every day for the rest of their lives. But even surrounded by celebration, Raphael's instincts prickled. His head of security had mentioned unusual surveillance around the estate. Nothing concrete, just the sense of being watched. Raphael had tripled the guards, installed additional cameras, and personally vetted every staff member. He wouldn't lose her again. Wouldn't fail to protect their child. Later that night, alone in their bedroom, Ariana stood at the window overlooking the estate grounds. Raphael came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking, Kara? That this feels too perfect. Like we've tempted fate by being this happy." She turned in his arms. 3 days ago, we were in a warehouse with guns pointed at us. Now we're married again, safe, planning for a baby. It doesn't feel real. It's real. He placed his hand over her stomach, feeling the slight swell. You're real. This is real. And I'll make sure it stays that way. You can't control everything, Raphael. Watch me try. She smiled despite herself, but worry shadowed her eyes. Raphael kissed it away, gentle and thorough, until she melted against him. Come to bed, he murmured. Let me show you exactly how real this is. He made love to his wife with reverent intensity, relearning every curve, every sound she made, every way to bring her pleasure. And when she cried his name, falling apart in his arms, he held her through the aftershocks and thanked God or fate or whatever force had brought her back to him. Afterward, she curled against his chest, fingers tracing the scars he'd collected over years of survival. Tell me about the business, she said quietly. About what you actually do. I want to know everything, Raphael. No more secrets. So he told her. Not the sanitized version he'd given her during their first marriage, but the truth. The deals made in shadowed rooms, the violence necessary to maintain power, the moral compromises that kept his empire functioning. He expected her to pull away, to regret marrying him again. Instead, she listened until he finished, then said, I want to help. Ariana. Not with the violence. Not with anything that puts our baby at risk. She sat up, eyes fierce. But you said you wanted to transform the business into something our child could be proud of. Let me help you do that. I know art, culture, legitimate business. Let me be your bridge to a different kind of power. Raphael stared at her, this woman who constantly surprised him. You want to reform a criminal empire. I want to build a legacy our child won't have to run from. She cupped his face. You're brilliant, Raphael. Strategic, disciplined, visionary. Imagine what you could accomplish if you channeled that into legitimate enterprises. The ports could go legal. The territories could become investment properties. The contracts could support real businesses. It would take years, and make me vulnerable during the transition. So we'll be smart about it. Strategic. We'll keep what needs to be kept and transform what can be changed. Her smile was steel wrapped in silk. Besides, you have something now you didn't have before. What's that? A wife who's not afraid of getting her hands dirty. And a baby who deserves to inherit something better than blood money. He kissed her deeply, amazed and humbled by her strength. Have I mentioned that I'm completely in love with you? Once or twice. But I never get tired of hearing it. They fell asleep tangled together, planning an impossible future that somehow felt inevitable. The threat came 2 weeks later. Raphael was in a meeting with his consigliera when his head of security burst in, face grim. Sir, we have a situation. Someone breached the estate perimeter. Left this on the front steps. He handed Raphael a manila envelope. Inside, photographs. Ariana at the gallery. Ariana at the medical facility. Ariana and Raphael leaving their wedding ceremony. And beneath them, a note in precise handwriting. Asterisk, congratulations on your remarriage. I hope you'll both be very happy in the time you have left. Kozlov sends his regards from hell, and his brother sends his promise. You took everything from my family. I'll take everything from yours. Starting with the heir you're so desperately protecting. Asterisk. The signature was a single name, Dmitry Kozlov. Raphael's blood went cold. Viktor Kozlov had a brother. One he'd apparently failed to account for in the aftermath of the warehouse assault. Lock down the estate. No one in or out without my personal approval. Triple the guards around Ariana. I want eyes on her 24 hours a day. Raphael's voice was death. And find me everything on Dmitry Kozlov. Where he is, who he works with, what he wants. I want his entire life mapped in the next 6 hours. His men scattered to execute the orders. Raphael sat in dangerous stillness, studying the photographs. Dmitry had been close enough to capture intimate moments. Close enough to kill if that had been his intention. But death wasn't the goal. Torture was. Making Raphael suffer by threatening Ariana and their baby. Turning his greatest joy into his most profound vulnerability. The consigliera spoke carefully. We could relocate Ariana. Somewhere Dmitry can't find her. Keep her safe while we eliminate the threat. She won't go. She'll insist on staying, on not running from danger. Raphael's jaw clenched. And I can't force her. Not anymore. Not after promising to include her in decisions. Then we end this quickly. Dmitry is motivated by revenge, which makes him predictable. He'll come for you directly, try to draw you out. He already has. Raphael tapped the photographs. These are bait. He wants me angry, reckless, making mistakes. Wants me to know he can touch my wife whenever he chooses. So what do we do? We give him what he wants. A meeting. On our terms. Raphael's smile was predatory. And we end the Kozlov line permanently. When Raphael returned to the penthouse, Ariana was painting in the studio he'd built for her. She looked peaceful, radiant, and he hated shattering that peace with reality. She took one look at his face and set down her brush. What happened? He showed her the photographs, the note. Watched color drain from her face before fury replaced fear. He's been following me? Watching us. Her hand moved protectively to her stomach, now visibly swollen at 4 months. For how long? Since before the wedding, at minimum. Possibly since Kozlov's death. Raphael pulled her close. I'm handling it. You'll be safe. I promise. How are you handling it? I'm meeting with him. Negotiating an end to this. You mean you're walking into a trap? Her eyes flashed. Again. Because that worked so well last time. Last time I didn't have a choice. This time, I have the tactical advantage. Dmitri wants revenge, which means he needs me alive long enough to suffer. That gives me leverage. Or it gets you killed. She gripped his jacket. No. Absolutely not. We find another way. There is no other way, Kara. He'll keep coming until one of us is dead. I'd rather it be him. And if something goes wrong? If he's better prepared than you think? What happens to me? To our baby? Tears streamed down her face. I just got you back, Raphael. I can't lose you again. He wiped her tears with infinite gentleness. You won't lose me. I'm too stubborn to die, and too in love with you to leave. But I need to end this threat before our baby is born. Before Dmitri gets desperate enough to act instead of posture. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Not to the meeting. But I'm not sitting here helpless while you risk your life. Her voice strengthened. Let me help. I can think of something, some angle you're missing. 2 minds are better than 1. Raphael wanted to refuse. Wanted to lock her in the estate and handle this alone. But he'd promised to include her, to trust her strength. And maybe she was right. Maybe together they'd see an option he'd missed. Tell me what you're thinking, he said. Over the next hours, they planned. Ariana's mind was sharp, her questions forcing Raphael to consider alternatives. By midnight, they had a strategy that might actually work. It's risky, Raphael admitted. If Dmitri doesn't react the way we expect, then we adapt. But this gives us a chance to end it without you walking into direct danger. Ariana squeezed his hand. Trust me, Raphael. The way I'm trusting you. He did. Completely. The next morning, Raphael sent word to Dmitri through intermediaries. A meeting neutral ground to discuss terms. Dmitri agreed with suspicious eagerness, which told Raphael the man was planning violence. Good. Raphael was planning the same. The location was a defunct restaurant on the waterfront, chosen by Dmitri. Raphael arrived early with a small security team, sweeping for explosives, identifying sight lines, mapping exits. Everything appeared clear, but instinct prickled warnings. Dmitri arrived precisely on time, flanked by 4 men. He was younger than Victor, sharper, with cold intelligence in his eyes that his brother had lacked. Don Santini, thank you for accepting my invitation. You didn't leave me much choice, threatening my wife and child. Ah yes, the pregnant Mrs. Santini. How is she handling the stress? Pregnancy can be so delicate. Dmitri smiled without warmth. I'd hate for anything to jeopardize the baby's health. Raphael's hands clenched, but his voice remained level. State your terms. What do you want? What do I want? Dmitri laughed. I want my brother back. Since that's impossible, I'll settle for destroying everything you love the way you destroyed my family. Your wife, your heir, your empire, all of it burning while you watch helplessly. Victor's death was his own fault. He kidnapped a pregnant woman, threatened my family. He got exactly what he deserved. He got murdered because you couldn't accept losing power, because your precious empire mattered more than human life. Dmitri leaned forward. But I've learned from his mistakes. I won't try to negotiate with you. Won't give you chances to plot and scheme. I'm simply going to take everything, piece by piece, until you're as empty as you left me. You can try. Raphael's voice was ice. But you'll fail. Because I'm not the man I was when Victor came for me. I have more to lose now, which makes me infinitely more dangerous. We'll see. Dmitri stood to leave. Raphael let him reach the door before speaking again. One more thing. The photographs you left? My wife wanted me to thank you. Dmitri turned confused. Thank me. For providing evidence of your surveillance, stalking, and terrorist threats. evidence she's already forwarded to federal authorities with very detailed documentation. Raphael's smile was sharp. You see, my wife is brilliant. While you were watching her, she was building a legal case against you. Harassment, stalking, conspiracy to commit violence against a pregnant woman. The FBI is very interested in talking to you. Color drained from Dimitri's face. You're lying. Am I? Check your accounts. Your properties. Your associates. Raphael stood, buttoning his jacket with casual menace. My wife suggested we try the legal route before defaulting to violence. Apparently, watching someone lose everything through legitimate channels is much more satisfying than simply killing them. Who knew? Dimitri's hand moved toward his weapon. Raphael's security team responded instantly, guns drawn, trained on Dimitri and his men. I wouldn't, Raphael advised. You're already looking at serious federal charges. Add attempted murder of a sitting Don, and you'll never see daylight again. Of course, you might not see it anyway, depending on what the FBI finds when they dig into your brother's operations. I'm guessing there's enough evidence to put you away for life. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Dimitri's eyes widened with understanding. This had been a setup from the beginning. You'll regret this, Santini. No, I really won't. Because while you're rotting in a federal prison, I'll be raising my child with my wife in the empire you failed to take. Raphael's voice dropped. Victor underestimated Ariana. So did you? That's why you both lost. Federal agents swarmed the restaurant before Dimitri could respond. Raphael watched with cold satisfaction as the man was arrested, read his rights, and dragged away, still threatening vengeance. His consigliere appeared at his elbow. The FBI found enough evidence in Kozlov's records to charge Dimitri with racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other felonies. He'll spend the rest of his life in maximum security. Good. Raphael pulled out his phone, texted Ariana. Asterisk, it's done. He's arrested. Coming home to you. Asterisk. Her response was immediate. Asterisk, I knew you could do it. I love you. Asterisk. He smiled, something tight in his chest finally loosening. For the first time since Ariana had walked into his building with a secret and hope in her eyes, Raphael allowed himself to believe they might actually have a future. One not defined by constant threat, but by the family they were building. When he arrived home, Ariana was waiting in the foyer. She launched herself at him despite her pregnancy, and he caught her easily, breathing in her scent. You're safe, she whispered. We're safe. We are. Thanks to you and your brilliant, devious mind. He pulled back to look at her. When did you have time to compile federal evidence? I didn't sleep much after you showed me those photographs. Spent the night researching Dimitri, finding connections to his brother's crimes, documenting every instance of his surveillance. She smiled proudly. Then I called a friend from law school who works for the FBI and handed her everything on a silver platter. Apparently, they've been trying to build a case against the Kozlov organization for years. I just gave them the missing pieces. Raphael kissed her thoroughly. Have I mentioned you're incredible? Once or twice. But I never get tired of hearing it. They went upstairs together, and Raphael spent the rest of the day showing his wife exactly how incredible he found her. When they finally lay tangled together, exhausted and sated, Ariana placed his hand on her stomach. The baby's moving. Can you feel it? Raphael went still, concentrating. Then there, a tiny flutter against his palm. His child. Their child. Real and alive and impossibly perfect. Christo, he breathed. That's our baby. That's our baby, Ariana confirmed, tears sliding into her hair. Our future. Our reason for changing everything. Raphael kissed her stomach with reverent tenderness. I promise you'll be safe. Both of you. I'll build you a world where being a Santini means legacy and honor, not violence and fear. It might take years, but I'll do it. We'll do it, Ariana corrected. Together. Together, he agreed. The months that followed were transformative. Raphael began the careful process of legitimizing his business operations, using Ariana's connections in the art world and her business acumen to build legitimate enterprises. The ports went legal, becoming honest shipping operations. The territories were developed into investment properties. The contracts supported real businesses that created jobs and value. It wasn't easy. Raphael's traditional allies resisted, viewing the changes as weakness. Some left, seeking organizations that maintained old ways. Others stayed, intrigued by Raphael's vision of an empire that could exist in daylight. Through it all, Ariana was his partner. She attended meetings, negotiated deals, used her charm and intelligence to win over skeptics. Pregnant and glowing, she became the face of Santini Enterprises' transformation. Proof that the family was building something new. The baby was born on a cool October morning, arriving 3 weeks early and completely perfect. A girl, with Raphael's dark hair and Ariana's fierce spirit. They named her Isabella Sofia Santini, after both their grandmothers. Raphael held his daughter for the first time and felt his entire world realign. Everything he'd built, everything he'd fought for, every decision he'd made, it all led to this moment. To this tiny, perfect human who depended on him completely. "She's beautiful," Ariana whispered from the hospital bed, exhausted but radiant. "She's perfect. Like her mother." Raphael couldn't take his eyes off Isabella's face. "I promise you, little one, you'll inherit an empire you can be proud of. No secrets, no blood money, no fear. Just love and opportunity and a father who will move heaven and earth to give you the world." Isabella yawned, utterly unimpressed by his vows. Ariana laughed. "She has your temperament already. Completely unafraid. God help us all." They brought Isabella home to the estate, now transformed into a real home rather than a fortress. Raphael had removed many of the security measures, trusting that legal legitimacy provided better protection than armed guards. The nursery was filled with light, decorated in soft creams and golds, a space where their daughter could grow without shadows. Those first weeks were chaotic and perfect. Raphael learned to change diapers, warm bottles, and function on 2 hours of sleep. He attended every feeding, every cry, unwilling to miss a moment of his daughter's life. Ariana watched him cradle Isabella during a 3 a.m. feeding, singing Italian lullabies in his rough voice, and fell in love with him all over again. "You're a natural," she said from the doorway. Raphael looked up, smiling. "I'm terrified. She's so small. So fragile. She's a Santini. She's tougher than she looks." "True. She has you in her, after all." He stood, carefully transferring Isabella to her bassinet. "Come back to bed, Cara. You need rest." They curled together in the pre-dawn darkness, Isabella sleeping peacefully nearby. Raphael pulled Ariana close, breathing in her scent, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For coming back. For giving me another chance. For believing I could be more than my worst instincts." His voice roughened. "For giving me a family worth fighting for. You gave me the same thing. A love worth fighting for." She kissed his jaw. "We saved each other, Raphael. That's what real love does." 6 months after Isabella's birth, Raphael called a meeting of his organization. Every associate, every family head, every person connected to the Santini Empire gathered in the ballroom of his estate. Ariana stood beside him, Isabella in her arms, as he addressed them. "For 3 generations, the Santini family has built power through methods that required darkness. My grandfather, my father, they believed this was the only way to survive, to thrive, to command respect." Raphael's voice carried across the room. "They were wrong." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Raphael continued. "The world has changed. The methods that made us powerful now make us vulnerable. Federal investigations, public scrutiny, moral accountability. These are the new battlefields. And we can either adapt or become extinct." He gestured to Ariana. "My wife has shown me that real power comes from legacy, not fear. From building something that lasts beyond violence. From creating value instead of taking it. Over the past year, we've begun transforming our operations. The results speak for themselves. Profits are up 40%, federal investigations have decreased, and our influence in legitimate business sectors has tripled. We are becoming an empire that exists in daylight, and we are stronger for it." Raphael paused, letting his words sink in. "I know some of you disagree with this direction. To you, I offer a choice, adapt with us, or leave with my blessing and generous severance. But if you stay, you commit to this new path. No more unnecessary violence. No more operations that can't withstand legal scrutiny. We are Santinis, and we will build a legacy my daughter can inherit with pride." The room was silent. Then, from the back, someone began to clap. Others joined until applause filled the ballroom. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to make the transformation real. Afterward, Raphael's consigliere approached him privately. "Your father would have killed half this room for that speech. My father died alone, hated by his children and feared by his associates. I intend to do neither." Raphael glanced at Ariana, who was showing Isabella to some of the wives. I'm building something different. Better. It's working. The families respect what you've accomplished. Some even envy it. The older man smiled. You've done the impossible, Don Santini. You've changed the nature of power itself. I had help. Raphael's eyes never left his wife. I had Ariana. That night, after Isabella was asleep and the estate was quiet, Raphael found Ariana on the balcony overlooking the city. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin on her shoulder. What are you thinking about, Mrs. Santini? About how far we've come. About everything we've survived. She leaned back against him. About how grateful I am that I was brave enough to walk into your building with a secret and hope. I'm the grateful one. You gave me everything, second chances, redemption, a family, purpose beyond power. He turned her in his arms. I love you, Ariana. More today than yesterday. More tomorrow than today. For the rest of our lives. I love you too. My dangerous, devoted, transforming Dawn. She smiled. Think Isabella will appreciate what we've built for her? If she doesn't, she can rebel and join the Peace Corps or become a librarian. I'll support whatever makes her happy. Ariana laughed. A Santini librarian. Your father is rolling in his grave. Good. Let him roll. Raphael kissed her softly. This is our legacy now. Not his. Ours. They went inside together, checking on their sleeping daughter before retiring to their bedroom. Raphael made love to his wife with the passion of a man who knew exactly how precious love was, how easily it could be lost, how desperately it should be protected. Afterward, holding Ariana close, he allowed himself to believe in happy endings. Not perfect, not without struggle, but real. Built on love and choice and the courage to change. 3 years later, Raphael stood in the same chapel where he'd married Ariana twice, this time watching his daughter toddle down the aisle, dropping flower petals everywhere except the designated path. The occasion was the christening of their son, Matteo Raphael Santini, born 6 weeks earlier and already showing signs of his father's stubborn temperament. Ariana stood beside him, Matteo in her arms, watching Isabella's chaotic progress with amusement. She's her own person, Raphael murmured. She gets that from both of us. Ariana shifted Matteo higher. Think we can handle 2 of them? We can handle anything together. The christening proceeded beautifully despite Isabella's creative interpretation of flower girl duties. When it was over, Raphael gathered his family, his wife, his daughter, his son, and felt complete in a way power had never provided. That evening, as they put the children to bed, Isabella looked up at Raphael with serious eyes. Papa, are you a good man or a bad man? Raphael froze. Ariana watched him carefully, curious how he'd answer. He knelt to his daughter's level. I'm a man who made bad choices before I learned to make good ones. I'm not perfect, Tesoro, but I try every day to be worthy of your mama and you and your brother. Does that answer your question? Isabella considered this. Mama says you're the bravest man she knows. Your mama is very generous. She also says you love us more than anything in the whole world. That part is absolutely true. Raphael kissed her forehead. Now sleep. Tomorrow is a big day. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow, you start learning to paint with Mama. And I get to watch you discover if you inherited her talent or my complete lack of artistic ability. Isabella giggled, already drowsy. Raphael tucked her in, breathing in her innocence, her trust, her absolute certainty that he would protect her. He would. Until his last breath. In their bedroom later, Ariana confronted him about Isabella's question. You handled that well. Better than I expected. I won't lie to our children about who I was. But I also won't let my past define their future. Raphael pulled her close. They'll know I wasn't always good, but they'll also know I changed. That people can choose to be better. That love is worth transforming for. You're already better, Raphael. You've been better for years now. Because of you. Because you showed me what I was missing. He kissed her deeply. Every good thing in my life traces back to you walking into my building and giving me another chance. I didn't give you a chance. You earned it. You fought for it. You changed your entire world for it. She cupped his face. That's why I love you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're willing to try. They made love slowly, reverently, 2 people who'd found each other across violence and fear and impossible odds. When Raphael finally let himself sleep, Ariana wrapped safely in his arms, he dreamed not of empires or power, but of his children's laughter and his wife's smile. The next morning brought a surprise visitor. The FBI agent who'd arrested Dmitry Kozlov 3 years earlier appeared at the estate requesting a meeting. Raphael received her in his study, Ariana at his side. Agent Morrison. To what do I owe the pleasure? I wanted to inform you personally. Dmitry Kozlov died last night. Prison fight, apparently. He made enemies quickly. Raphael absorbed this information without expression. I see. Thank you for telling us. There's more. Before he died, he confessed to several unsolved crimes, trying to reduce his sentence. One of them implicated some of your former associates. She handed Raphael a folder. We'll need statements from you both. Cooperation will be noted favorably in any future considerations. Raphael opened the folder, scanned the contents. Names he recognized, operations from his past that existed in legal gray areas. The FBI was offering him a deal. Testify against his former associates, and they'd continue overlooking his transformed empire. I'll need to consult with my lawyers. Of course. But Mr. Santini? Off the record. Agent Morrison leaned forward. You've done something remarkable here. Turned a criminal organization into a legitimate business empire without burning it down first. The Bureau respects that. As long as you continue on this path, you won't have trouble from us. Noted. Thank you, Agent Morrison. After she left, Ariana turned to Raphael. Are you going to testify? Against men who operated under my father's rules? Who refused to adapt when I offered them the chance? Raphael set down the folder. Yes, because protecting our family means cutting ties with the past completely, even if it means betraying old loyalties. You're not betraying anyone. You're choosing us. There's a difference. I know. Doesn't make it easier. She took his hand. Nothing about loving you has ever been easy, Raphael. But it's always been worth it. The trial happened 6 months later. Raphael testified with calm precision, detailing operations and decisions that sent 3 former associates to federal prison. He received death threats, angry calls from old allies, accusations of betrayal from people who'd profited from his father's empire. But he also received approval from the FBI, respect from legitimate business partners, and most importantly, his wife's pride and his children's innocence. On the night the verdicts came down, Raphael stood in Isabella's room watching her sleep. She was 4 now, brilliant and fearless and completely untouched by his past. That was all that mattered. Ariana found him there, Matteo drowsy on her shoulder. It's done, she said quietly. All of it. The past, the investigations, the old empire. You're free, Raphael. We all are. He took Matteo from her, cradling his son while watching his daughter. 2 children who would inherit wealth without blood, power without violence, legacy without shame. I never thanked you properly, he said. For the pregnancy test that brought me back to you. For being brave enough to tell me. For changing everything. The pregnancy test didn't bring you back. Love did. She wrapped her arms around him and their son. We brought each other back. That's what family does. Raphael kissed her temple, holding his family close. Outside, Chicago sprawled beneath them. No longer a kingdom to conquer, but a city to call home. The Santini Empire had transformed from shadows to light, and it had cost him everything except what truly mattered. His wife. His children. His soul. 5 years later, Raphael walked Isabella into her first day of school. She wore a uniform and carried a backpack nearly as big as she was, chattering excitedly about learning to read chapter books. Papa, will you pick me up after school? Every day that I possibly can, Tesoro. And when I can't, Mama will be here. Promise. Promise. He knelt to her level. And Isabella? If anyone ever asks about our family, you tell them we're Santinis. We're strong, we're loyal, and we protect each other. But we're also kind, honest, and we build things instead of destroying them. Understand? She nodded seriously, then hugged him hard. I love you, Papa. I love you more than anything in this world. He watched her run to join her classmates, his daughter who would never know the darkness he'd walked through to reach this moment, who would inherit an empire built on legitimate success and love. Ariana appeared beside him, Matteo holding her hand, their 3rd child, a daughter named Lucia, resting against her shoulder. She'll be fine. She's tougher than she looks. She gets that from you. She gets that from both of us. Ariana leaned into him. We did it, Raphael. Built the family and the life we dreamed about in that hospital room when she was born. We did. And I'd do it all again. Every mistake, every danger, every impossible choice, if it meant ending up here with you. They walked back to the car together, Raphael carrying Matteo while Ariana managed the baby. A family. Normal, chaotic, perfect. The empire Raphael had inherited was nearly unrecognizable from what his father had built, but it was stable, legal, and profitable. More importantly, it was something he could pass to his children without guilt. That night, after the children were asleep, Raphael and Ariana sat on their balcony drinking wine and watching the city lights. "Do you ever regret it?" Ariana asked. "Giving up the power, the fear-based empire, the absolute control?" "Never. Not for a second." Raphael pulled her close. "That empire was built on loneliness and violence. This life, with you, with our children, with legitimate success, this is everything I never knew I needed. Even when it's hard, when the profits are lower or the deals take longer. Especially then, because I'm building something that will last beyond me. Something our children can expand without destroying themselves." He kissed her hair. "You saved me, Ariana. In every way a person can be saved. We saved each other. I was so lost when I left you, so convinced that loving you meant losing myself. But I was wrong. Loving you made me stronger, braver, more myself than I'd ever been." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd fought their way to happiness through impossible odds. Finally, Ariana spoke again. "The pregnancy test that started all of this, I kept it. Put it in our safe." Raphael smiled. "Why?" "Because someday, when Isabella or Matteo or Lucia ask how we got our happy ending, I want to show them. Want to prove that sometimes the scariest moments lead to the greatest blessings." She turned to face him. "Want them to know that love is worth fighting for, transforming for, risking everything for. And they'll know, because they'll see it every day in how we are together." Raphael cupped her face. "I love you, Ariana Santini. More than I loved you yesterday. Less than I'll love you tomorrow. For every tomorrow we have left. I love you too. My dangerous, devoted, completely reformed Dawn." He kissed her as the city sparkled below them, as their children slept safely inside, as the empire he'd transformed hummed with legitimate success. Everything he'd ever wanted, everything he'd never known to dream of, captured in this moment with this woman. The pregnancy test that had brought him back to his ex-wife had given him everything. A second chance, a family, a reason to change, and a love that had survived impossible odds. Some men built empires through fear and violence. Raphael Santini had built his through love and transformation. And as he carried his wife to bed, ready to show her exactly how much he cherished her, he knew without question which empire was worth more. The one built on love would always endure. Always.